This foot shape could be behind all of your problems from the knee all the way to the neck. And today I'll show you what it is, how you can find out whether you've got it, and of course, what to do about it. Do this test. Either in sitting or in standing, rock all the way to the outside of your heel and then all the way to the inside of your heel. But then try to find the middle between those two extremes where you're basically dead centered on the floor around your heel. The question now is, do you have full contact of the ball of your big toe on the floor? Or is it floating? Or can you easily stick a finger under there? If that is the case, chances are that you have a Varus forefoot. And here's why that matters if you have problems anywhere else in your body. To keep things simple, we can divide the foot into the forefoot and the rear foot. These two parts of the foot have the ability to move in opposite directions to each other, and that in 3 planes of motion. In that little test, you have found out that when your heel is centered off, your forefoot is not. Your forefoot is therefore inverted against the rear foot, which looks like this. And this is important because the rest of your body now has to adapt to that foot shape. You have found out that there is little to no contact under the ball of your big toe when your heel is centered. The ball of the big toe, however, the first metatarsal head, is one of the key points in our foot tripod. This shape creates a situation when you walk that changes the timing of how your foot hits the floor and how well it can or can't establish that tripod on the floor. Rather than finding the floor sooner, there's now a gap that has to be filled as you land. So this could mean that, for example, the knee has to come in much further than if the forefoot was not inverted. But it will also require postural adaptations in the body above. Often it's then those adaptations that lead to problems or pain. And here are a few of them. This is a classic sign of a Varus forefoot. Our body will do something to find the ground. And it is really interesting that one way to do it is by simply turning out the foot. So you can try this yourself. Even if you didn't find a Varus forefoot, if you gently lift the ball of your big toe away from the floor, you maintain this shape, you will find that if you now externally rotate your entire leg, you will bring your foot back towards the ground. So it is pretty clever. You have restored floor contact, but you have just created an external rotation through your leg and hip. If you complain about tightness in the glute, for example, or maybe a pulling sensation in your groin and your adductors, that could be why. The solution to these problems are not in stretching or strengthening the glute or by working on the adductors, but instead by working on the foot so that the varus reduces, which in turn means your body no longer has to turn out that leg. More on that later. Just like we can bring down the ball of your big toe by turning the leg out, the same can happen by simply turning the pelvis away from that leg. Now we have a pelvis that is rotated, which of course also affects the tissues around that hip and even the SI joint, but it will also require you to turn your upper body and spine back the other way. This could happen anywhere along the spine or even just at the level of your head and neck. Because otherwise you would face away from the front, and we don't tend to live our life looking away to the side. Problems that you might complain about here are also around the hip, or depending on where you counter rotate, basically anywhere along your spine and neck. So neck pain can indeed come down to this foot shape if this is where your body is required to derotate your system. Another way to accommodate this foot shape in your overall posture is by stepping the leg out to the side, which is hip abduction, or an opening of the angle at the hip here. Here again, you can see and also feel yourself how we can bring that metatarsal head back down to the floor if we apply the strategy of stepping the leg out to the side. A complaint here might of course be adductor tightness, as those tissues are always under stretch. These are just 3 ways that our body finds in order to make up for that Varus forefoot. I hope that you can already see that if you have a problem somewhere that is related to, for example, a constantly rotated pelvis or a spine, you have to work on the foot so that the body above no longer is required to apply these strategies. And this in turn will clear up the problems in your body higher up. Now, this will also affect your ability to move freely in all directions. Human movement is so fast that being very off-centered somewhere, for example, when the pelvis is very rotated one way, there is simply not enough time for your body to experience the opposite rotation. Let's say this is the potential for pelvic rotation, and we have to rest at this point due to the foot shape below. Now, first of all, as I already discussed, just at rest, certain tissues will be lengthened and shortened, but importantly, a footstep only takes around 0.6 seconds. So when I go for a walk, I will rotate left and right from this starting point, which means that I won't really have the time to ever make it to the other side. Which now means my back and hip tissues never really get the opposite experience of either lengthening or shortening. And that is exactly what we're trying to get back. Here's how you can get to work. If you have a wedge, we're going to place it from the inside under the ball of the foot so that we are reducing the gap that we found. When we now bring our body on top of that foot by bending the knee, we are creating a situation where we have changed the mechanics and the timings of those mechanics in the foot, which now means that tissues, first of all, have to respond in a very different way. You're basically disrupting the habitual patterns and you're asking your body to figure out what to do with these changed mechanics and timings. Repeat this a few times, making sure that your weight is really going into that foot and doesn't stay behind. Take it for a little walk and then recheck whatever you found before. You can check the heel alignment test from the start, or you can of course also do a visual assessment of the other structures that you identified. So is your foot still as turned out? If it isn't, you're already changing the length-tension relationship around your hip. So if you have problems up there, this is a very good starting point. How much pelvic rotation or spinal rotation do you see? And what does your back or neck even feel like right now? And lastly, do you see a change in that leg abduction, if that is what you noticed before? As I mentioned, these are just 3 possible adaptations to a Varus forefoot. There are more ways, but I hope that this helps you see just how clever the body really is to make sure that we always have ground contact. And I'm also hoping that this shows you that where you have a problem might actually be your body's solution to this foot shape. By the way, it can go the other way too. If you've watched my recent case study about my own leg pain, you will have seen that my body created that Varus forefoot in order to make up for a problem in my shoulder. I suggest you watch that video so that you can see that it can always be a two-way street. I hope you enjoyed this little overview of Varus forefoot. If you want to watch more specific content, just let me know what interests you in the comments. Hit subscribe and follow me for more videos about your body, biomechanics and pain. See you next time.